There was another Lansing City Council meeting this Monday. We're talking about Michigan-made batteries, demolitions, and folks speaking up. There is some discussion of gun violence this episode. This is your gun violence discussion disclaimer. Also talking about slides and ties, so get ready. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of What Lansing Council, a podcast transforming Monday night's Lansing City Council meetings into an enthralling recap. And today, my very special guest is Larry Wallace. Larry is a senior investigative reporter for Fox 47 News, our local Lansing area news TV station. Thanks for being here, Larry.
Oh my God, thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
Thank you.
Have you been doing this for like years?
This is my 9th episode.
Oh, it feels like 9th year.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Well, I've had a lot of experience being on Fox 47 News with you.
Let me just tell you guys, Jill I call her one of my community reporters. I think I have about 5 of them in the city of Lansing, and you're one of them.
Aww.
You guys are super knowledgeable on what's going on when it comes to local government, school district. I'm talking about education, finances, everything.
Yeah.
And you guys would be like, I don't know much about it, but as soon as I press that record button, it's like... I'm like, oh, you don't know much. Okay.
I do some quick Googling,
yes.
Larry.
So thank you for all you do, too.
Yeah, of course. Always excited to find out more about Lansing and what's going on. I'm there. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. We want to know Larry.
Yes. So I am originally from the west side of Detroit.
Okay.
Born and raised on the west side of Detroit. Funny story is I never knew I wanted to be a journalist growing up. My mom was like a real estate agent for like 25 plus years. So I wanted to follow those footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad was like, hey, go to college for a semester, the local community college. And I was like, okay, college isn't for me, but I'll go because my dad is like paying my car note and my car insurance. So I feel like I have to go.
Thanks, Dad.
Yes. And I ended up going to the local community college, and they had 4 classes available, because I registered late. It was yoga, PE, American Sign Language, and intro to journalism.
Wow.
So I had to take all 4 to be full time. So I took all 4, and I fell in love with journalism. I took it, and then the rest was history. I've worked in Detroit, Windsor, Toledo, and now Lansing.
Great.
Yes.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here.
Aw, thank you.
And how would you describe Lansing in your own words?
Oh my gosh, tight knit. Everyone knows everyone, or I feel like everyone is like related in some way. It's like I'll be like, I'll be like, oh my, I'm doing a story, and then a week later I'll be doing another story, and then someone will be like, oh, you interviewed my neighbor, or you interviewed my cousin, or you interviewed. I was like, oh my goodness, Lansing is really tight knit.
We're all cousins here.
Yes, everyone, relatives.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. And Lansing has just been great. And I feel like I've become one of the cousins. I feel like you guys have really embraced me. So like super grateful for that.
Wonderful to hear. And what's something else that you like about Lansing?
The food. The food. What's so crazy is like it's so underrated, but the food here is so delicious. You guys have so many great places to eat at, from the Tangy Crab.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Tangy Crab. Gregory's Soul Food. I love them. I really, really love Veg Head. So good. I never thought an Impossible Burger could taste so good.
Veg Head.
The one downtown.
Yes.
So delicious. It doesn't even taste like vegan. I was like, after tasting the food, I was just like, oh my God, I feel like I want to be vegan. Yeah. But then I was just like, oh no, I can't spend $15 a day. Because it'll always taste this good. But like, you guys have so many great restaurants in downtown. I love it down there too. So a lot of good places and food.
Amazing. So great to hear. And what's something you'd like to see change in Lansing?
Something I would like to see change: the gun violence.
Yeah.
Touchy topic, the gun violence.
Yeah.
People are always messaging me. That is an issue I'll never get tired of covering. People are always messaging me like, oh, Larry, I feel like you've told this story before. I'm going to keep telling it because it's an issue
still
that's
happening,
plaguing the streets. And then another thing that obviously the housing crisis. We talk about the housing crisis all the time. Yeah. We talk about the red and pink tags and people having safe, affordable places to live. I think that's another issue that I would like to see kind of like addressed.
It's a big issue.
A big issue.
Yes, and a big issue for council that we're
yes.
talking about.
Yes, council. Let's talk about it. Every Monday, council. Let's talk about it.
Council.
Let me first start by saying I love the residents and how you guys show up to council. When you guys show up, you guys show out. And I'm like, well, I tell you, I come to council meetings sometimes, not even with the intent to tell a story, but by the time I leave, when all of you guys get up on the podium, I'm like, I have like 10 or 15 stories. So I'm good for the rest of the month. Yes. So, yes, I love it.
And this council meeting was no exceptions. Monday, the 10th of March meeting. And first we have the committee of the whole. All of our council members were present, and they are Ryan Cost of the 1st Ward, who is the council president, Jeremy Garza of the 2nd Ward, Adam Hussein of the 3rd Ward, Brian T. Jackson, he was a little late, but he made it, of the 4th Ward, and for our at-large members, we have Jeffrey Brown, Tamara Carter, our vice president, Trini Pelivanoglu, and Peter Spatafor. Also at the meeting, we had the clerk's office staff, a mayor's office representative, our internal auditor, Charles Randall, and the city attorney, Gregory Venker.
100% attendance.
That's right.
Yes,
you got
amazing,
it.
Amazing.
Thanks for showing up. The first item was a presentation by Carl Dorshemer from the Lansing Economic Development Corporation, and that's a department that's kind of run by the city. And he was joined by Lisa Niscaroni, the Director of External Affairs and Government Relations for LG Energy Solutions here in Michigan, and she's based out of Detroit. So LG is a South Korean company who has partnered with GM, General Motors.
But is it the place that makes like the washers and dryers?
LG, they make tons of stuff.
Okay, washers, dryers, fridges, I feel like I've seen.
Tons
appliances.
of, like electronic, all that. So they were building a new battery plant by the GM facility that's kind of in Delta Township, like west of Horrocks. So they're building this battery plant. They got approval in 2021. They're like all going for it. And I guess GM and LG were building 3 new battery plants in the United States. One in Ohio, one in Tennessee, and one here in Lansing. And recently they're like, oh, we don't need the battery. We don't need all the batteries from all 3 of these. So we're going to get out of this Lansing battery plant. But LG is like, whatever. We love batteries. We make batteries everywhere. We'll make batteries here. No worries. So they're like, we're going to take this project over. And that was announced in December last year. So this is like an ongoing situation. Niscaroni from LG is there, and she's like, we want this plant. They just have to go through some red tape, I guess, for the sale to go through. What they're hoping for from council is a transfer of some things so that they can have the same sort of tax breaks that GM was going to get.
Okay.
With building this and with operating it. So there's an industrial facilities tax exemption and a Renaissance zone transfer is what they're hoping to get from council.
Okay.
So they're just asking for a hearing to like see this go through. And Niscaroni is like, batteries are great. We're always selling more batteries. Like, even though GM doesn't need the batteries, we need the batteries. We're making cool stuff. Batteries are so flexible, so much diversification, so much synergy. Like, she's really selling it.
Yes.
So she does a great job. And the council members are like, all right. And Garza's like, are you going to bring in a bunch of undocumented Korean workers? And she's like, no, we will bring in a few overseas specialists to install some of the equipment, but most of the folks we're hoping to hire here. Councilmember Hussein says, I remember going through all this with you folks in 2021 when we're trying to build the plant. We made a lot of promises about jobs, like construction jobs. Have those promises been met so far? And they're like, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Council President Koss said GM said that they were going to unionize this new workforce at the battery, that the battery plant once it's operational. Are you going to do that? And she was like, well, I can't speak for a future workforce, but we'll respect the collective bargaining process. Councilman Jackson said, so for stuff that is made here, manufactured in the U.S., but by a South Korean owner, would those things be subject to the tariffs that our new president is all up into? And she said, no, if the batteries are made here, they'll be American made. Doesn't matter who the owner of the company is.
Okay.
Council's like, what's Lansing going to get out of this? What are we going to miss out on with these tax breaks?
Right.
And Dorshimer is kind of there to talk them through it. It's going to be a wash. With this Renaissance Zone tax exempt situation, we estimate that the city of Lansing is going to be missing out on $900,000 a year for 18 years. But with the people coming into work here, that's going to be an added $600,000 a year in income tax that we're projecting, and the city is likely to make up that gap of $300,000 with spending by those workers in Lansing, and the plant will be using BWL electricity. So he's like, I think it's a good deal for the city.
I think, and this is just from doing tax stories, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I think the thing is, a lot of people are concerned with that simply because taxes are guaranteed. When you're talking about making up money from like selling products or like people buying things or coming to the city and things, that's not guaranteed. One thing I've learned, especially working during the pandemic, a lot of things aren't guaranteed.
Yeah.
Not saying we're going to have another pandemic or epidemic or anything of that nature, but like a lot of things aren't guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of residents may be a little concerned when it comes to that is because, hey, taxes, they're guaranteed. But then, you have this guy basically saying like, hey, we can make up the money because I have faith. This sounds similar to other stories I've done where they're like, hey, okay, we may be losing taxes, but we can make it up here. Mm-hmm. But like I've seen it on both sides. So I've seen them make up the money, and then I've also seen, okay, the money not be made up, essentially.
There's no guarantee.
Yeah. I think when you talk about taxes, that's a guaranteed thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
death and taxes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It's a tricky situation. They set the hearing for next meeting, March 24th. So this will be at the council for a while, I think.
Yeah, okay.
No decisions were made.
Okay.
And next up, they were talking about revoking a liquor and cabaret license. You know what I'm talking about here. From Dreamgirls/Centerfold on South Pennsylvania Avenue. They were talking about this because there was some gun violence and things are not going great. Over the years, a lot of problems. Councilmember Jackson said, I'm not happy about the hearing officer who has been set for this because it's a City of Lansing department head and
Raleigh Van Fossen.
Yes,
okay.
Do you know this
individual? Yeah, I was told, he is the director over code enforcement. I've been covering that, but yeah, it's Raleigh Van Fossen.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your take on this whole situation?
Okay, so backing up,
Mm-hmm.
it reminds me of the whole Logan Square situation, but on a smaller scale. I think oftentimes people talk about something horrific has to happen before action is taken. When there's red flags and everything of that nature. So it reminds me similar of the Logan Square situation. I got here in 2021. It was when I started covering news here. And my first story in the city of Lansing, just getting my feet wet in the city, was homicides at its peak in 2020. That was my very first story. Investigative piece right off the bat. Very first date. My boss is like, okay, you come from Toledo, so we're having you on this. I was like, okay, here we go. But as I was covering that story, they were like, don't go to Logan Square. Like after 6 o'clock, don't go to Logan Square.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, okay. Then, obviously the tragedy happened. 5 young teens shot, all survived, but our station was the only station to talk to one of those teens who was shot 9 times. 15 years old, 95 pounds, all of 95 pounds. It's a blessing that he's still here. That was a tragedy.
Issue.
Yeah, it was a known issue.
Area, yeah.
But around the time, I've also heard things about centerfolds. I would say, like, right when I was hearing things about Logan Square, I was also hearing things about centerfolds and things of that nature. And I think people are just concerned with the violence there. Obviously, there was a shooting that happened there a month ago or so, and a 45-year-old shot and killed. But then that wasn't the first one that happened at that specific location. Then I also heard of issues pertaining to liquor issues and then drug activity and things of that nature. It's a slew of like issues at that location. I think they're taking action simply in the light of that recent shooting that happened.
Yes. They set a hearing to revoke the liquor and cabaret license at that location. Then they had a closed meeting to discuss Teamsters collective bargaining, and the HR department head, Elizabeth O'Leary, and Dennis Parker, the chief labor negotiator, headed in for the closed session. And Pelle Vonneglue said, hey, I would like internal auditor Charles Randall to come along. And they all voted in favor of their good friend Charles also going to the closed session. In the meanwhile, some very loud piano sonata was played in the audience. And Metro Bowl owner and Old Everett neighborhood group leader had a nice chit-chat, and I tried to research the Renaissance Zones tax situation and was disappointed to find that it wasn't like all dressing up in ye olde medieval times.
Oh, okay.
Yes. The council came back after a few minutes, and there were some board updates. So the airport got a $8.1 million grant to do some terminal redesign work.
Oh, okay.
Looking forward to that.
Yes, yes.
And they're also putting in 2 electric vehicle parking spaces.
Wow. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, go next. Then that was the end of the committee of the whole. And there was a bit of a break before the regular meeting.
Okay.
Now is the time when I give my Best Dressed Award.
Oh, okay.
And I'm giving it to Brian P. Jackson, our Chief Deputy City Clerk. So our normal Best Dressed, Chris Swope, was not in attendance.
Oh.
Brian P. Jackson said, I was channeling Swope's energy. I need him with me to get through this meeting. And I said, you did a great job.
We have a few council people who dress really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trinity dresses really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think Peter's dresses really nice.
Yes.
I think we have a few.
Councilman Brown has some good suits.
Yes. Councilman Brown has some good suits. So, yeah, I think we have a nice dress council.
They bring it. And Brian P. Jackson, he was wearing a bright grass green shirt with a kind of a muted moss suit jacket, and then a striped grass green and Kelly green tie. Spring vibes.
Wow, I love perfect for the weather.
That's right. Tons of folks came in for the regular meeting, including yourself.
Yes.
And I think Channel 10 News was there.
Yes.
A lot of folks for Eastern, I think, to show their support for folks speaking out about the demolition of the old Eastern High School.
Yeah.
So we're to the regular meeting, and Tracy Tanner was sworn in for the Advisory Board of Public Service. She will be joining that board. Her partner was in the audience taking a bunch of pictures on his phone. It was very cute.
I love that.
Yeah.
Support.
That's right. Then Councilmember Jackson gave an exemplary report on the Sexton High School Boys basketball win over Chelsea.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they're going to the quarterfinals state games tonight. Sports ball,
whatever. I think he said something about Jackson.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know anything. Sports flies over my head. But I was like, oh, good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them.
That is right. There was some good sports energy. Next, they were talking about some show of cause hearings to make safe or demolish 6 properties that have been red tagged in the city between 2017 and 2023. And 5 people from those 6 were there to talk about how they're doing work on these. Please don't tear them down.
I think the one that stood out to me was 1612 Martin Street. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
That was, so like in August 2023, there was a really bad storm.
Okay.
And a tree fell on the home and killed the 84-year-old woman.
Oh, God.
The house is destroyed. Like, the house is like in shambles.
Okay.
And neighbors have been wanting that house torn down since it happened. Because if you drive by it's just a lot of debris.
Okay.
And it's been in that same position since 2023.
Oh, man.
And I think some of the family members want it torn down, but as I dug into some of the meeting minutes of like the demolition board and everything, some family members say we want to rehab it. So it's a little back and forth.
But, you know, just demolishing something, it doesn't mean that that property is like ruined forever. Then you have the opportunity to build something new. So,
yeah, I think it's also, you know, a lot of times these demolitions, they're expensive.
oh, I'm
They're
sure.
priced. As much as I've been covering local government here in Lansing, I literally recently just found out that the owner of the property gets billed, and it's a little bit more expensive for the city of Lansing to do it than for them to do it themselves, simply because Lansing has to bring in personnel. They have to bring in staff to evaluate the situation.
Yeah.
You know, the location, as opposed to just bringing in contractors.
Right.
So,
and this whole, I mean, all of these discussions that are happening is costing the city money. Like the council meeting, I mean, the city's paying a lot of money just for everyone to be at the council meetings and taking their time up going through these issues. Yeah. So it's a lot of behind the scenes happening.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to follow, though.
Yeah.
You know, when it's like the safe makes a, though. But I think the hardest stories, because people are always like, Larry, you do such a good job. But my hardest stories that I struggle with, stories with numbers. So whenever I'm doing the city's budget, I'm I get on camera, I make it look like I'm super confident, but, you know, but like those are super hard stories. And then when you talk about demolition, because it's like, hey, okay, they made a 60-day make safe or demolish. I'm like, oh, I thought they did that back 6 months ago.
Right.
But no, it had to go through a committee, then another committee, then to council, then back to the committee. And then I was like, okay, those are hard stories to follow.
The timelines.
Yes, the timelines. Yeah. It's like they go through so much. Yeah, it's demolitions.
Yeah. If you were ever, as a kid, loved knocking down those Legos,
I did.
City's got a job for you.
I was a Bob the Builder kid. I was a Bob the Builder kid. So
amazing.
yes.
So folks came up. They're talking about how they're doing work. And last meeting, we had 9 of these hearings about make safe or demolish. And it looks like from those 9, we're whittled down to 4. At this meeting, they had a vote on 4 properties if they were going to move ahead with the make safe or demolish orders. And for those 4 properties, they did. And they included the old Metro Bowl property on MLK. Another thing that came up was 2 more liquor license applications. One was for a restaurant that they want to call Sea Level on South Washington. And that went 6-1 to give them the liquor license application. And then there was La Mulata. That one went 5-3 to not allowing the liquor license to go through.
Okay.
And there was this was the biggest discussion, I think, at the meeting. There was a lot of back and forth about, are they making progress at the property? Yes. But have there been a lot of neighbor complaints? Yes. Are they making a lot of promises that we don't know? It's across the street from where Garza works, and he was talking about how trash has been coming over, and they've had to clean some stuff up, and so he had some firsthand experience. But he voted to allow them to go ahead with the liquor license. And voting with him was Jackson and Spatafor, and those who voted no were Carter, Hussein, Cost, Pelivanoglu, and Councilmember Brown.
Okay.
They scheduled a public hearing on this ordinance change they've been talking about to prohibit unregistered vehicles from parking on public roadways. So they'll keep talking about that in next meeting. Next, there were 13 public comments, 6 regarding the eastern demolition. There were a lot of folks in the audience also, I think, who are sharing these opinions. The commenters said this is a cultural treasure. The new owners, U of M hospital system, which was previously Sparrow, they're saying U of M should be compromising and working with the community. They are not. And nobody gets to do whatever they want with their own property. And Bob Pena couldn't even have goats.
Okay.
So these folks shouldn't get to do whatever they want. They should have to listen to us.
So really quick on the Eastern thing, because people were messaging me. And I saw in one of the Facebook groups, I think it was Politics in Lansing Facebook group, someone commented and said that they were talking to the demolition company who is in charge of like demolishing the former Eastern High School.
Okay.
And they said apparently the demolition company said like they're putting the demolition on pause because of safety issues pertaining to the picketers and like the people protesting, and it's not safe.
Okay.
Some people said 2 weeks. Someone else said indefinitely.
Oh, wow.
So I did some digging and was like, hey, what's going on with this? I reached out to the company. I didn't hear anything back from the company, but then I reached out to Sparrow. I'm like, hey, is demolition on pause? Like,
get it,
from
get
Eastern.
It, Larry.
And they were like, well, we would have heard that. Those are rumors. We would have heard something if it was actually on pause. So those are just rumors. But yeah, so I did want to clear that up because people were messaging me like crazy, like, we did it. And I was like, let me check. But Sparrow said that wasn't the case.
And it seems like council is kind of also resigned that this is happening. It seems pretty out of their hands. Sparrow owns the building. We passed the point where it could have been made a historic monument. Like that would have been years ago.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
One person did say, hey, there's a lot of other issues in Lansing to get excited about. Love that you all are here. You care about Eastern. Like, we've got a lot more that you can care about. So come keep this energy going. We need you to show up every day, not just when some old building's being demolished. Veteran was...
Wow, Lansing. Wow. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the people in Lansing. I'm like, they say what's on their mind, and like, I'm like, wow.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, for sure. Okay. A veteran was there, and he was saying that he would like 10% off on his property tax because of his service. Downtown resident wants council to be smarter about the way it's zoning its city for tax property capture. He said we could be doing this a lot better. We could be getting more property taxes if we're densifying, if we're allowing more units on the same property.
Okay.
Then another person was there talking about how the city webpage is hard to navigate, can't find all the meetings, put all the meetings in one place. And next, the two leaders of the Lansing Empowerment Network were there.
Yay. Okay. Could I just give a shout out to Michael and Erica Land?
For sure.
Amazing work they do. And me covering gun violence for nearly 5 years here. When I tell you amazing work that they do in the community. And those are people, I remember when I first started in Lansing, those were the two consistent people that I saw at all the council meetings.
Yeah. Talking
about this cause and combating it. So they do, in the Lansing Empowerment Network, I think it's great what they're doing. So yes.
They're really doing a lot. Good job. They were talking about a meeting, Southwest Action Group, that they were at, and some very just horrible, derogatory remarks were made by the Churchill Downs Community Association president. They want to see some repercussions for his actions. They said they're going through all the right channels here, and they're not getting anywhere. So that was...
Wow.
Last, we had a Parks Board member who was thanking folks for getting involved in the master plan so far, the master plan for the parks, and he outlined more opportunities for people to get more involved.
Parks are so important. Like, get kids off the tablets and off the phones and get them out to the park so that they can swing. Slide down. I was talking to my best friend's 8-year-old son.
Okay.
Loves his tablet and his game and his phone. Mm-hmm. You would not believe me, Jill, when I told you this little boy told me I've never slid down the slide.
Oh my God.
I said,
what?
I'm like, I was like, what happens at recess? He was like, well, we have the option to stay inside and play on the computer if we want to. I said, so this is modern day elementary school.
Get these
he
kids
was serious. I was like,
on these slides.
Kids. I told my best friend after, I was like, we need to take him to a park now.
Yes.
Immediately. Like, this is like, God. No. I'm like, you've never slid down the slide ever? Like, that's part of childhood. Like, especially sliding down a slide when it's like super hot outside and getting a little burnt. It's like that's
or when it's a little wet and it's
when
just
it's a little
wet at the
and
bottom
it's like,
of
yes,
the slide.
it's like that's being a kid. I'm like, what? How? But like, I think parks are so important. I think I love that the Parks and Recs department, they're doing that and bringing that back. So I love that.
Yeah, Larry, thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you for having me.
And thank you all for listening. And if you have any questions about City Council, what happened at the meeting. We would love to hear them. Who would you like to be our next guest? You can leave a comment where you're listening to this podcast. I also have a Facebook page, so that is something. And the next council meeting will be in 2 weeks, March 24th. I'm going to be out of town, but I have a plan. And our guest for that meeting will be Loretta Stanaway. She's a longtime council groupie and citizen advocate. She is going to get all of the deets on Best Dressed for me, so looking forward to that. Larry, do you have anything you want to plug?
I do want to give a shout out to Michael McKissick. He started the Mikey 23 Foundation.
Okay.
And now Mayor Indy Shore did something really great for him. August 1st, the day that his son was shot and killed in Lansing back in 2015, they're proclaiming it Mikey 23 Day.
Wow.
To honor his son. And also the foundation, the amazing work that they do. They're known for taking kids off the streets, teaching them trade skills, and then in hopes of reducing the gun violence among the youth. So I do want to give a shout out to Michael McKissick. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Larry. Great to see you. Great to speak with you. And thanks everyone for listening. Thank you to the Public Media Center for letting us record with you. And we'll see you next time.